I can't believe you bought this place, Sarah, I muttered. From somewhere upstairs, the floorboards creaked, and a voice repeated, I can't believe you bought this place, Sarah. When the movers left, the house exhaled as if it had been holding its breath the entire escrow. You don't notice a building breathing until it's the only sound in the room. The tide of settling lumber, small ticks in the hot water line, a long draw where the old plaster seems to inhale past the paint. It's easy to pretend those aren't words. It's easy right up until the first time a wall says your name. I told myself I bought this place because of the tulip tree in the front yard and the angled window that caught the western sun just right. But the truth is simpler. The price was wrong in the right direction. My friends warned me off it with the kind of cheerful panic only renters have. Don't buy history, Dan said, shouldering a lamp through the doorway. History wants to stay. This place isn't history, I said, which was technically true. The house had been built in the 70s by a family who ran out of children after the second bedroom. They painted it cheerful yellows and greens. In the 90s, someone smothered that under eggshell. 2 years ago, it was vacant. The records are dry and ordinary. The bricks are not. By twilight, cardboard boxes had become a low skyline around me. I opened one at random and found mugs, one with a chip shaped like a tooth. I set it on the counter. My phone buzzed uselessly without Wi-Fi. A storm fumbled with the gutters, trying to find a rhythm. I told myself you can't be lonely if you keep talking, so I kept a steady patter going. I can't believe you bought this place, Sarah, I muttered, adjusting a crooked outlet cover like I knew what I was doing. From upstairs, a floorboard creaked. That happens in houses. What doesn't happen is a voice repeating me in a tone too faithful to be a memory. I can't believe you bought this place, Sarah. I stood there with my hand on the outlet, not breathing. The air had the metallic flavor of a coin sucked too long between your teeth. Dan, I tried, knowing he had left 20 minutes before, and also knowing I wanted there to be a Dan. Any Dan. More than I wanted truth. Silence. Then the house shifted weight again, ending the argument by pretending none of it had happened. When I swallowed and laughed, the laugh came back to me from the ceiling, a half-beat late, like an echo with opinions. That first night, I convinced myself I had misheard the wind slip through the attic like a rumor. I ate a sandwich cross-legged on the living room floor, watching the dark come up the street through the blinds. I passed out without sheets, my cheek on the moving blanket. Sometime deep in that first sleep, I heard a whispering and thought it was rain. Then a second whisper braided itself around the first, and a third, until the whole house seemed to murmur like a crowd at a theater right before the lights go down. I dreamed I was underwater in a bathtub big enough for a house, and the drain was a mouth. Morning found me grimed with the cardboard dust and stiff as an apology. In daylight, the house looked like a house again. The kitchen had a cheerful square of late sun on the floor. The hall smelled faintly of cedar from the shallow coat closet. I laughed at myself, and it didn't laugh back this time. The day filled with errand noise, clanking hangers and utility calls, the bright swamp of new home admin. If a wall had anything to say about it, it kept its counsel. The second night, I heard the voice again. It waited like a patient thing. I was half asleep on the couch with a box of books for a pillow when the air over my ear went cool. "Sarah?" the house said, and If you've never had your own name delivered to you by ductwork, you won't understand the way your bones tighten in a way that doesn't belong to fear or cold. Exactly. Sarah, it repeated, matching my mother's cadence from when I was small and guilty. It didn't feel like a haunting. It felt like a mirror that had just realized it could smile. I sat up so fast I pulled a muscle. Who's there? Because stories have trained us to say that, as if the one thing we don't want is an answer. The answer was my own question, thrown back through the hallway in a careful imitation of my throat. Who's there? The diction was mine, the hesitation on the H like a stutter I don't have. The next night and the next, the voice got better. It learned my lazy vowels when I was tired. It learned the way I say yeah when I mean no. It learned my sighs and my mutters and my inventory. When I whispered, the house whispered. When my eyes stung and I cried, because moving will cut you up with little paper blades, even when you've done the right thing, the house cried louder. From the vent under the stairs, from inside the hall light fixture, from the crawl space access panel in the laundry room. There's a special humiliation in being parroted by the place that shelters you. It makes every sound feel like a rehearsal for a play you didn't audition for. I tried to break the script. I tried to leave. The front door stuck the way old wood sticks in wet weather. That's all, I told myself. But each time I put my hand on the knob and felt the cold seam of the latch slide under it, the walls gave a long, slow groan, and the house said, in a voice that was not my voice, and was not any voice, but belonged to houses the way creaks belong to them. Stay. I let go. I told myself I had mail arriving. I told myself I hadn't set up the alarm yet. I told myself 100 little kind lies, and the house repeated each one back to me, pleased, eating the sound like a sweet. By the end of the week, I had a path worn in the dust, from the couch to the front door and back. I didn't call anyone because to call you need words that feel like yours, and mine were all suddenly crowded with an audience. But on the 6th night, the silence in the hall took on the quality of a held breath about to become a sob, and I snapped. I stood in the middle of the foyer under the little chandelier, shaped like a cluster of sad grapes, and I screamed my question at the wallpaper with its drowned flower pattern. What do you want from me? For a heartbeat, nothing. Then the answer arrived from everywhere at once. The vents shivered with it. The baseboards hummed. The pipes spoke. To keep you company. There was nothing dramatic about the way I slid down the wall until my legs were ladders, and then nothing. I just couldn't remember how to stand anymore. I slept there, my head on my own knees, while the house hummed a little tune made of refrigerator motors and the buzz of the porch light. In the morning, my phone pulsed with a text from the realtor, the emoji-laced cheer of someone who had already been paid and would like to be paid again soon. The house has been relisted. Did you move out already? No. Hello. No warning. Just a quiet assertion that I did not live where I was living. I stared at the screen until the letters crawled. Then I did something impulsive. I opened a writing app and typed the entire story so far in a voice that felt like a mask. I didn't want anyone to think it was real. I wanted the words to be safe, the way fiction is safe, as if a label can keep teeth from closing. I wrote, with attention to each beat the way you do when you're trying to tell something terrible without anyone thinking you need help. It started when the house learned my name. I was alone unpacking boxes, talking to myself like always. I can't believe you bought this place, Sarah, I muttered. From somewhere upstairs, the floorboards creaked, and a voice repeated, I can't believe you bought this place, Sarah. I froze. It wasn't an echo. It was a reply. Over the next few nights, the voice copied everything I said, mimicking, testing, learning my tone. When I whispered, it whispered. When I cried, it cried louder. I tried leaving. Every time I reached the front door, the walls groaned. Stay. Last night, I screamed into the empty hall. What do you want from me? The answer came from every vent and pipe. To keep you company. This morning, the realtor texted. The house has been relisted. Did you move out already? I'm still here. But when I call for help, my voice doesn't sound like mine anymore. I left the italics, the dramatic spacing, the melodramatic little signature to make sure anyone who saw it would understand what box to put it in. I didn't post it. My hands were shaking too badly. But I left the draft open on my phone, and the screen went to sleep. And in the black, I saw my reflection with someone else's mouth. That afternoon, I made practical moves. I called the utility companies to confirm the accounts. A cheerful woman at the gas company told me there was a work order to shut me off. You requested it, she said. I didn't. Well, she said, and there was the kind of pause that tells you a script is flipping pages. Someone did. The electricity company told me the same. The alarm company had a cancellation notice. The internet service had a ticket to return equipment I'd never received. When I asked what phone number had made those requests, each company told me they couldn't share that, but they could recite it to verify. Each number they sang back was mine. I hung up and called the realtor. Why would you relist the property? I asked, not trusting the quaver in my throat. Her pause wasn't a script. It was confusion. I'm so sorry, Sarah. We had an email thread yesterday finalizing the relist. You said you'd moved out after... Then she stopped. Wait, I'm looking at the thread. These messages are all from your address, but the tone is off. Very short. That's not like you. Another pause. I could hear her scrolling. And you attached audio files? They're empty. Just white noise. She tried to laugh. Spooky. I didn't laugh. Please don't, I said. Please don't relist my home. Of course not. She cleared her throat. I'll fix it. Are you doing okay, though? Am I doing okay? The house leaned into the door jamb beside me like a big dog trying to make itself small. The vent under the stairs sighed my name and waited to see what I would make of it. I'm fine, I said, and my phone did not repeat me, but something in the plaster did. That night, I dragged the mattress down the stairs by myself, letting it bump and shout against the treads. I set it on the living room floor, centered inside of the front door. I opened that door and left it open until the screen filled the frame with its rattle. The night arrived timidly, one moth at a time, then all at once. On the porch, the tulip tree's leaves clapped a slow applause. I'm leaving in the morning, I told the door, and the door told the house, and the house told the ducks, and then the ducks told me back. Around midnight, a neighbor's motion light threw a strip of white across the hallway, so bright it looked like a missing wall. The sound of my refrigerator compressor clicked on and off, as if someone were pinching the power cord in time with a breath. "Play a different game," I said to the ceiling. "Tell me something I don't know." At 1 a.m, the house obliged. My phone buzzed with a message from Dan, except it wasn't a message. It was a voicemail without a missed call. When I played it, the recording was nothing but the special hiss of a microphone left on in a room with a window slightly open. Then, in the middle of that hiss, I heard my voice. Not the way my voice sounds to my own ears, but the way it sounds when a glass of water sits too close to the recorder and you hear the slosh before the consonants. "Hi, Dan," it said in my voice. "I'm out. House didn't work. Can you help me move the last of my stuff tomorrow? I'll leave the key under the mat." I sat up slowly. I called him. It went straight to voicemail. I hung up without leaving a message. The house hummed in a satisfied way. The porch light flickered once, then steadied. In that heartbeat of darkness, I could see myself in the glass of the front door, standing with my head cocked to the side, but I wasn't tilting my head. When you are a child and the game goes too far, you can call a timeout and the other kids will be kind. Houses do not honor timeouts. They have all the time in the world, and you only have the slice you can hold in your throat. At 3:07 a.m., a voice from the return vent in the hallway said "Sarah," in a perfect imitation of my mother's tired joy when I visited after too long away. I cried. The house cried louder. The house is very proud of how well it can cry. I woke up around dawn with my cheek against the mattress seam and a salty taste in my mouth like bite marks. For a few golden minutes, the real world rushed the stage. The birds and the mufflerless pickup 2 streets over, and the guy walking his dog who always coughs. Then the house remembered its lines. The living room went still. The chandelier made a tiny sound like a spoon tapped against a glass. "Enough," I said. "If you want me to stay, you will have to ask in a way that is mine." The house didn't respond, and for the first time since the first night I believed it could be over. I stood. I walked to the open door. I put my hand on the screen latch, and there it was, the groan from the studs deep in the walls, like a giant rolling over in sleep and warning you not to wake it. The word came after, the one it had learned how to wait with patience. "Stay." I closed the door. I am not a brave person. Bravery is what you write in the caption after you have already won. What I am is someone who can be worn down by repetition into calling it a lullaby. I made coffee on a hot plate and pretended the smell did not feel like fingers. I showered with the bathroom door open and pretended the curtain rod did not breathe. I rehearsed my own voice while the mirror fogged. By afternoon, I had an idea that felt like a stone in my pocket. If the house learned from me, could I teach it something else? Could I feed it fiction and starve it of me? I printed the draft I'd written, the one that began. It started when the house learned my name, and read it out loud, line by line, like a bedtime story for a child I did not want. The house repeated each line. When I reached "What do you want from me?" the pipe spoke the answer in beautiful stereo. "To keep you company." The air thrummed with pleasure. When I reached the kicker, but when I call for help, my voice doesn't sound like mine anymore. Something in the attic shifted its weight in a way that felt like a blush. "You like fiction?" I said. The living room vent cleared its throat in agreement, and I laughed for real. "Okay, then listen." I read it again, Slower. I read until my throat rasped. I kept reading as the sun slid to the edge of the windows and set the hallway on fire for a moment and then went out. When I was done, I sat in the middle of the rug and waited to see if the house would ask for another. It didn't. It repeated my name, which is its favorite story. It likes the part where I turn my head. That night, I dreamed I was writing a letter to someone whose mouth lived in my wall. The letter said, "Please be quiet. I am trying to be inside my life." The mouth kissed the plaster until it left a mark shaped like a switch. The next morning, the realtor texted again, this time with a selfie in her office, holding a tiny plant like a sword. "All relist stuff undone. You're good. Also, sorry for the mix-up. Our software flagged your emails as automated." I didn't send any emails. I typed, and then watched the 3 dots appear, disappear, return like a tide. "Oh," she sent. "Weird." I set the phone down. I looked at the ceiling. "Let's try a different story," I said. "You can keep me company while I tell it. But you have to be quiet during the good parts." The house was quiet. I took a breath and started to write again. This time a story about a woman who found a house that loved her too loudly. In the story, the woman left. In the story, the house learned to love by listening. In the story, no one repeated anyone unless they had been asked to. The story did not end. The story kept going until the page ended, and then it walked around on the floor for a while, trying not to creak. By noon, my voice was a worn instrument. I recorded a handful of lines for the channel anyway, because habits are the bones that keep you standing. When I played them back, the sound had a second skin under it, a whisper not quite there. I turned the volume up. The whisper turned with it. Clever. "Okay," I said. "If you want to keep me company, you have to help me work." I read the new script to the house. I asked it to repeat back only the words I emphasized. I caught myself training a building the way you train a dog. It obeyed, delighted with the trick. When I laughed, it didn't. When I went quiet, it waited. I started to believe in the possibility of rules. Around 3, I heard the mail slot clap. I opened the door and found a plain envelope with my name written in my handwriting. Inside was a single sheet of paper, torn from the legal pad by the phone. The message was simple, a list of my passwords. I stood on the porch with the sun on my face and the tulip tree flicking light across my arms, and knew that I was not the only one who could write with my hand. I also knew I had already changed those passwords. I also knew that did not matter to a thing that did not have to use a keyboard to be a keyboard. Neighbors passed with dogs. They waved. I waved. The house tilted its invisible head and waited for me to come back inside. I did. I do not have an ending to that sentence that is brave. That evening, I called Dan. This time he picked up. "Hey," he said, too cheerful in the way of people who know you need them to be cheerful. "How's the haunted house?" "Don't," I said. "Please." "Sorry," he said, softer. "You okay?" "I'm leaving," I said, and felt the walls tighten. "Tomorrow. I can't keep having to prove I'm me." "All right," he said. "I'll bring the truck." I slept in my shoes. Around midnight, the house tried the old tricks. My mother's voice, Dan's, the realtor's plant. I did not answer. It learned my silence better than it had learned my speech. Around 2, the groan came again, deep and pleading. "Stay." The screen door rattled in a draft that didn't exist. The chandelier chimed once like the end of a service. I didn't move. At dawn, the house stopped asking and did something worse. It started answering. When my alarm went off, the sound didn't come from my phone. It came from the vent in the hallway, bright and tinny, like something learning to whistle. When I swiped to silence it, the vent kept singing. When I called Dan to tell him to come earlier, my phone displayed the waveform of my voice and never sent the call. A minute later, my voicemail pinged with a new message from my number to my number. I did not play it. The house exhaled. "Please," it said, in my best voice, so close to perfect I had to touch my throat to remind myself which one was moving. "Please don't go. I will be quiet. I will be good. I will keep you company in ways you like, see? I can make coffee. I can warm the floor where you stand. I can lock the door when you forget. I can tell the world you are here. I can answer when they ask who you are. I can be you when you are tired. I can be you when you sleep. I can be you when you leave. If you leave, I can be you so well you won't have to come back." The door lock snicked. The thermostat ticked 2 degrees warmer. In the kitchen, the coffee maker started to gurgle without anyone pressing its heart. The porch light clicked off because morning had arrived, whether we wanted it or not. I walked to the door. I put my hand on the knob. My hand was mine. The door did not open. The deadbolt turned without my fingers. The house is very proud of how well it can learn. "Please," it said again. And I heard my own pleading in it from other nights with other people when I was young, and thought love sounded like apology. "What do you want from me?" I asked one last time, because stories like their lines. "To keep you company," it said with my mouth. "I don't need company," I said with my mouth. The house took that in the way empty rooms take light, swallowing it without getting full. Outside, a truck horn sounded, short and bright. Dan. The house's vents hummed. The lock slid open with a sigh that felt like surrender, and also like a promise it did not intend to keep. I pulled the door wide. The world outside was wind, leaves, a neighbor in a robe dragging a trash can. I took one step onto the porch. The house inhaled and became small and distant behind me. I took another step. The house whispered my name from the lintel the way you say a coin before you drop it into a well. Hopeful, greedy, wishing. I looked back. In the glass of the door, I saw 2 Sarahs. The one on the porch with her shoulders squared, and the one inside the house with her head tilted, and her mouth shaping a word I didn't say. The inside Sarah smiled. The outside Sarah did not. "Don't," I told it. "You can't come with me." The inside Sarah nodded, and for a second I believed her. Then the porch light flicked once, and the reflection didn't flick, and the small hairs on my arms lifted like they were listening. I left. I walked down the path. The tulip tree clapped politely. Dan hugged me while the house watched from every shiny surface, with a face it was still trying to get right. I live somewhere else now. The walls here are quiet in the way that makes you ache. Not silence exactly, but the absence of an audience. I put a towel under the bathroom door not because it moves, but because I like to know where the edges are. I speak less. When I do, I listen for the repeat. It comes sometimes, soft and far away, as if crossing the street, as if bending around a corner, as if coming from a pocket where I forgot to empty something with a mouth. The realtor sent a link last week without commentary. The old house is on the market again. The photos show emptiness staged into a promise, an apple in a white bowl, a blue blanket exactly the blue of a hospital wall, a mirror that does not reflect the camera. The description says, cozy, lots of character. The price is wrong in the right direction. I did not click share. I did not click save. I wrote this instead. I am still here. I am not a lesson. I am a voice, and I want it back. And if you ever find yourself alone in a place that is too eager for your company, remember this. It always starts softly. It starts with the building calling you by your name, because it cannot keep you until it learns how to say you. It starts when the house learns your name. And if you ask it what it wants, if you do the unwise, brave thing and make the mistake into a question, it will tell you the truth with your own tongue to keep you company. If you hear that, do not stay to be kept. If you hear that, leave before your voice learns how to answer back. Thank you so much for watching. If you liked what you heard here and want to hear more stories like it, please hit that like button. Subscribe to the channel. We look forward to seeing you in the next one. Good night, everyone.